since this year. It looks like our players are getting ready for our round 4 here. We have Jacob Tano on the left on Mono Green Devotion, and then Isaac Van Til on the right with Dimir Ninjas. Now, Mono Green Devotion, we've seen a lot of these like Pioneer mainstays today, and I feel like this is another one. And I know, Mason, you have played a lot of different versions of this deck. So what are your thoughts on it in Pioneer in general right now, and then also specifically against Dimir Ninjas?
Yeah, I mean, I think the Mono Green deck is doing some really powerful stuff just like at its core. It really takes over the game and just, does a ton of things in a single turn a lot of the time and just puts the opponents in an awkward position. I will say I'm a little curious as to like why Mono Green has been picking up. I think part of it is just the deck has always been pretty good and players have just, been reluctant to play it over other things when it comes to top performing decks and like at big events, because it hasn't really gained much recently. And the other decks that are good against it are all still quite popular, but the core game plan is just so strong that, I think it can overwhelm a lot of decks in the field, as we do see the Invasion of Ixalan pick up the Sunken Citadel, naming green and entering play.
Yeah, and I think that Mockingbird came in as an Elvish Mystic.
I think it did too, yeah, which means we have a lot of extra mana here for Isaac.
Yeah, and we are going to go ahead and attack in, and then here comes the Kaido.
Yeah,
so it's going to get some damage down, and interested to see how Isaac chooses to activate.
Yeah, this is the thing we did not see when we saw Fire Shoes playing a bunch, was the Kaito never really came down, and the deck is very different when it does and doesn't have Kaito.
Yeah, and Isaac really respecting the ramp part of Mono Green Devotion, putting the stun counters on this Elvish Mystic, which I think we should have one fewer counters at this point.
Yeah, I should be down by 1 because we had an untapped step. I'm sure the players will catch that in a second. If not, we'll have a judge look into it. But Pelucanos,
there we go.
Yep, very easy just to forget to do that here. Pelucanos Reborn, though, hitting the battlefield. And this is the only, I think, reach creature at this mana value in the deck. It's just a one of. And having a flying, having a deck full of flyers normally means you get across, but reach is going to really stop that.
Yeah, I mean, very powerful, just brick wall against Isaac here, whose game plan is so centered around, get in with these small flying creatures and get them unblocked. Looks like we are upticking Kaido. That's going to be an emblem. All the ninjas are going to have +1/+1 for the rest of the game for Isaac here.
And it looks like Isaac's just passing back. Can't get through the Pelucanos Reborn.
Yeah, and that's going to take the last counter off of this Elvish Mystic. Still tapped for this turn, but no more stun counters. Oh, and looks like we have the Enduring Curiosity in hand for Isaac, which we will be able to flash on. It's going to be an Elvish Mystic for Jacob. And tapping a couple lands. Oh, we were tapping the Nykthos. I see.
Yeah, Nick, we made 5 Devotion, and we played Old Growth Troll, and then, with the 2 and the 1, we played another one. And now, going into this next turn, Jacob has, I believe 12 Devotion, which is just so much mana. We're going to be able to play anything we want. And Isaac's deck has a bunch of soft permission, We have Spell Pierce type cards, Those aren't going to be able to stop these Nykthos draws quite often.
Yeah, now we are going to get in with the Spyglass Siren here. Draw a card thanks to our Curiosity. We've got that Pelucanos stunned down with the Kaito. And there's the Fairy Miscreant. I'll take a quick look at this.
Little Thoughtseize action as well.
Yeah, Thoughtseize. We're seeing an invasion. What can you tell what card?
Festivals.
Yes.
And then a land. The old hostile. Well, hostile, excuse me.
Yeah, Storm the Festival. Obviously one you gotta deal with, but also, Jacob just so much mana. Should easily be able to flash this back, right?
Yeah, I mean, we have enough to flash it back and pay for a Spell Pierce.
Yeah, that is crazy. This looks like paying 3. Are we making an old growth troll here?
It looks like we started to, but we decided to go for the Pelucanosh Reborn. We figured out 4/5, bigger than 4/4. We ran the
True,
numbers.
true. 4/5 flying reach.
Yeah.
Don't try to get over that one. We're going to see the invasion come down. Yeah. Resolve that ETB real quick.
It looks like Jacob hit another Nykthos.
Yeah.
And it looks like Jacob's, sorry, doing a little math here before we take a pick off the invasion. I mean, it was 12 devotion a second ago. It should be 13 now since we added 1.
Yeah.
Which means this other Nykthos in hand, we're going to have access to 24 mana this turn if we take Nykthos. Which is a little bit.
Yeah, it's a little bit of mana. It's a little bit of mana. Now, Mason, what are some things that this deck can do with all that mana?
Well, here's one of them. Emrakul the Promised End in hand for Jacob after this invasion. It costs 1 less thanks to Storm the Festivals. So it's only 12. So we can actually play the Hostile, excuse me. But yeah, I mean, this is like really, really big. It looks like maybe Jacob's playing a different card first.
Yeah, the Outcaster Trailblazer.
Yeah, this makes sense. The Trailblazer will get a mana on ETB, and then you play the Hostile for turn. Then you're at 12 thanks to the Storm of the Festivals in the graveyard. Emrakul enters, you get the cast trigger, and you get to draw a card. Tight play there by Jacob.
Yeah, very tight play, and feels like the door closing on Isaac here.
Yeah, I mean, Isaac is not in a great spot. These Old Growth Trolls can basically kill the Kaito if we want them to. And then you can just sort of attack everything else into the Emrakul. You can also just animate like the Mutavault and attack the Kaito into these trolls and these elves. And you just assign damage in a way that, only does what you want. But
well, don't forget the Kaito is a 4/5.
That's true. Don't forget Emrakul is the biggest.
Hey, who knows? It could Flood Pit's Drowner, the Emrakul, tap it down. Jacob could make some crazy plays here.
Yeah, I think the first thing Jacob's supposed to do is zero the Kaito and just put a land on top of the deck or get rid of any spell that's good. And then move to combat. That Mutavault is a 3/3 thanks to the emblem. So you're going to want to make sure that you put enough in front of it. Now, that won't be a huge issue with Emrakul. And Jacob might be forgetting the emblem.
Oh, looks like maybe he's reading it, figuring it out.
Yeah, this is a moment where you're really letting your opponent misreads because. Okay,
double block.
The elf will assuredly have lethal assigned to it. Only a little bit of an interesting attack here. I wonder if maybe we're losing this Outcaster Trailblazer for very little value, all things considered. But Jacob's like, I'll go to damage. Isaac's like, you're in control of my turn.
Yeah, so looks like we are going to let the Old Growth Troll die, put it on a land. All of these other creatures are going to die. We're going to get the Curiosity. And now Isaac gets to actually take a turn.
Yeah,
and could be worse. It's not good, but it could be worse.
Yeah, I like this one, Jacob. Flood Pit. Put the Flood Pit Drowner on this elf. You don't really need it. And then try and get this Mockingbird just to copy something that kind of, doesn't matter / nothing at all.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, this keeps you from being able to tap down the Emrakul, draw any cards off of the Enduring Curiosity.
Yeah, and the biggest problem here is really that Emrakul's threatening to attack, and we're at 18 life, which would normally be a lot, but 13 is a huge chunk of that. And you're seeing Isaac try to figure out how am I supposed to navigate my way around this.
So we're gonna see an attack. Emrakul gonna block one of the fairy miscreants. We're gonna get to draw a couple cards. Looks like is that 2 fairy miscreants?
I think it was 2 miscreants, but it's not enough. Isaac's gonna pick it up.
Wow, congratulations, Jacob, taking down game 1 there with mono green devotion and oldie but a goldie. As we're gonna take a look at these lists. First, we're gonna take a look at Isaac's Dimir Ninjas list, a deck that we've seen earlier today, saw it do pretty well. What are your thoughts, as a seasoned mono green player, what you would be scared of Isaac bringing in against you?
Yeah, this was open deck list. The things that I would be expecting is stuff like a Noise Affliction, especially on the play, is a great way to remove that Pelucranos or the Old Growth Trolls and get rid of their devotion and clean them up nicely. Also can hit an elf, which sometimes is pretty huge. Similarly, Cut Down does a very similar role in that regard. I'm kind of actually worried about Shieldred. Anytime the game is sort of fair, Shieldred can sort of outclass a lot of my creatures on the battlefield, and it makes my redraw effects, which I normally rely on a fair amount on the combo-y turns, into actually a liability. So if I was sideboarding with the Ninjas deck, it'd be something I want of those cards, then sort of maybe upgrade some of my awkward cards like this main deck Spell Pierce. Theoretically get something, in practice never really does. Turn some of those types of cards like Enduring Curiosity, maybe one of those as well, into these maybe higher impact cards that can hopefully disrupt the green deck, because that's what you're needing. And we saw it in Robert Taylor's feature match in round 2 that you disrupt a little bit while applying pressure. So Isaac really wants to kind of craft the deck to be more disruptive post board.
Yeah, and let's take a look real quick at Jacob's mono green list and see what he's got. Now, Mason, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not seeing a whole lot in the sideboard that I'm too excited about for this matchup.
Yeah, the mono green sideboards have always been a little tough. They've gotten better recently. You've gotten some cards that really help in that regard. Things like Monstrous Emergence is sort of a removal spell that, green desperately needed. It's a fight spell still. Keen-Eyed Curator is a great graveyard hate card, but those things aren't really great. The big thing that's jumping out to me now is Scrap Shooter. It's just a 3-mana 4/4 with reach. It has other text. It can technically be a disenchant. Those things maybe come up if some weird sideboard card type thing happens. Sure. But for the most part, it's just a 3-mana 4/4 that can stop these flying creatures. And that's good enough. I think that's what you're looking for. I could see a world of maybe bring in Cityscape Leveler if you're worried about a bunch of counter spells. It might be a situation where Jacob isn't used to playing against the Ninjas deck. I'm not sure how much Jacob plays Pioneer. He seems to love mono green. His deck is beautifully foiled out.
Right.
But, maybe he hasn't played in a little bit, or maybe this isn't just a matchup he's experienced too much. And I think it's very reasonable to be like, oh yeah, this sort of blue-black deck probably has a ton of counter magic. Maybe I want to have something that's a little strong there. And I could see something like that happening as sort of a hedge. But overall, I think, our game plan is pretty good as long as we can just untap with an elf. So let's not make it too complicated. Let's not make our deck too expensive. Let's say a lean, mean fighting machine.
Yeah, Scrap Shooter also one that jumped out to me just for the reach. I mean, the rest of the text does not feel like it'll be that relevant that often, but something that I think is also cool is, a lot of times having your mana tied up in the same colored pips is a downside of a creature, but in this deck, it actually makes it even stronger. The Scrap Shooter is 1 green as opposed to 2 green. So just really works super nicely with what Jacob's trying to do here as we get down into our game 2. Isaac on the play, down a game. Can he come back and win the next 2 to take the match?
Yeah, Scrap Shooter is really great for this deck in general. It's something where I think actually, is pretty reasonable to even be in the main deck. I think it's competing with cards like Pelucranos Reborn. And I think I like Pelucranos a little better for a few reasons right now. But there's a lot of worlds where I can imagine just playing 1 or 2 Scrap Shooters in my main deck and sort of just having that main deck disenchant, if those kind of decks are very popular in the format.
Yeah, absolutely. It's getting shuffled up here. Taking a look at some hands. Seeing an Anoint with Affliction. I think a couple of Sirens. Not sure what else. Looks like Isaac is willing to keep this 6, though. Oh, Jacob maybe taking a Mold of 5?
Yeah, going to 5. What I'm really curious is does Jacob keep in the Leyline of the Guild packs? Some green players just
Mm,
always keep them in because they're just such a strong like mana
yeah.
accelerant with Nykthos. But this is a matchup where your opponent's going to interact a lot, so maybe it's okay to sort of not have that in your deck. Another way to look at it though is that it is sort of a mana dork as long as you have Nykthos in play, and it's one that Isaac can't really interact with. So I'm curious to see
Mhm.
how Jacob approaches this, as he seems someone who plays a lot of the green deck.
Yeah, very interested to see as Jacob drawing his hand for this mole to 5.
There's Cityscape Leveler, so we did decide to bring that in.
And there's an elf. We've got a mana dork. I think that's a battle as well.
Yeah, I think we're on 1 land elf, which is not where you want to be, but on 5, you gotta do what you gotta do.
Yeah, and we're gonna see a siren immediately for Isaac. Make that map token. I'm gonna Nykthos for turn. We're gonna play our elf.
Yeah, and Nykthos is a good land, but like we were talking about before, sometimes the colored pips matter a lot. We'll have to see if Jacob has one of those hands as Moon Circuit Hacker comes down.
Yeah, it's gonna be a couple points of damage and a card for Isaac. We're gonna play a Darkslick Shores. And I mean, looks like has a lot of options in terms of one drops. Going to replay the siren, make a second map token, pass back to Jacob.
Oh, this is massive for Jacob. We have in our hand the Outcaster Trailblazer, which you can plot and later come down and be a mana. All right, we're
And
gonna go with
looks
the
like we're
invasion
gonna
to start.
start with the invasion. Take a look at these. Just gonna Kiora, some elves, another invasion. Yeah, taking a look at our hand here. Got the Nykthos, which maybe starts to push you towards the Kiora.
Yeah, that's a very powerful interaction. And use your Nykthos a couple times. Honestly, the thing I'd be most tempted by, which I'm not sure if it was there, would just be Basic Forest. I really just want to have mana. The
Yep, and it
Kiora
looks
is
like it
7 of
was
them.
there.
Yeah, I mean, I really like this play from Jacob. It's very disciplined of just like, I think if I just get to cast my cards, I can do it. I don't need to go super crazy right now. That might end up being wrong, but I think it's a very disciplined and hard choice to make, and it's exciting to see Jacob go for it here.
Yeah, is Isaac going to play Mutavault as the land for turn? Looks like thinking about maybe anointing this elf. But just going to Flood Pit's Drowner, tap the elf down in Jacob's upkeep. And we've got the Mockingbird as another Spyglass Siren. So it's up to 3 maps for Isaac.
Yeah, and I love this play from Isaac here, tapping the elf down. Keep that Annoyance Affliction for Polukranos Reborn. I think that's a card that Isaac is worried about as the Outcaster is plotted here.
Yeah, very nice. Very nice. Yeah, I mean, these map tokens can represent a bunch of damage out of nowhere. But not if we're hitting lands off the top. So we're going to go for another one. Oof. But these are saving Isaac the turns. He would have been drawing through these.
Yeah, I mean, drawing these 2 lands in a row is basically a death sentence. So while you much rather would have pressure in a spot like this, getting to actually, play the game potentially from here is good. And Moon Circuit Hacker is something that allows you to, loot here. So getting the extra land in hand, not the total end of the world, as we can always just discard it here. And yeah, you see Isaac very quickly be like, yep, don't want that.
Yeah, and I mean, Isaac's swinging in for 8 damage, taking Jacob down to 7.
And this is what we talked about, right? The clock plus disruption. We even haven't had a ton of the disruption, just Flood Pit Drowner, but even just a little bit can go a long way here.
Yeah, and I mean, Isaac very rewarded for playing that Flood Pit Drowner at exactly the right time, making sure that this elf is still down for the count on this turn, because we're going to get to play this for free. That's a mana. We're up to 4 without a land. We can tap this Nykthos to go up 1, I think. Yep.
Well, yeah, you'll break even, but you will turn one of your colorless into a green.
Sure.
Now you're up 1. but it looks like
Yeah.
we have nothing to do with the mana.
And we've got the Anoint in hand. I mean, this could be a lot of damage for Isaac here.
Yeah, I mean, if you actually a double Anoint, you could just kill both things. Your opponent didn't have anything to do last turn. If you put them down, an elf and a 2 devotion, that's got to be close to good enough.
Yeah, we're going to start here with the map. That's going to be a Kaido on top, which means we will get that counter. And then Mutavault for turn. We'll anoint the Trailblazer, animate the Mutavault, and that's going to be game. We're going to have a game 3. Congratulations, Isaac. Very well played. Really got the damage out when he needed it. Very well done. Well piloted.
Yep, capitalized on the situation at hand, played the flood pit drone right, went for the pushes when we needed to. A lot of tight spots. We could go a lot of different ways, made a lot of good choices and rewarded. And that's what this Dimir Ninjas deck really requires of you, is to be able to navigate those positions. Doing a great job here today. I mean, 3-0, looking to maybe be 4-0 if things go well. And really the question is, on the draw, can we keep up with the explosive games that Mono Green can present?
Yeah, well, I'm glad you mentioned that, because I was going to bring up, we've talked a little bit about play draw disparity in the format as a whole, but it feels like that might feel even a little bit more severe against a deck like Mono Green Devotion, or against really any deck that's playing effectively 8 Llanowar Elves, right? I mean, just their ability to ramp so quickly, and you're really the one who's pressured to respond to that. Do you think that is going to affect Isaac's decision making in either sideboards or mulligans or anything like that?
Yeah, Isaac's going to be a lot more tempted by fatal push hands, or hands that have a ton of ones, in order to try and, put Jacob on the back foot in some angle ASAP. But you're right, when you're on the play with an elf, if you get to untap, especially with a deck like Mono Green, you have so many powerful 3s, and now you're just snowballing this lead, right? Like, you got to do the first thing, and now you're a turn ahead of your opponent in mana, and if they can't answer that thing, it just gets out of control so quickly. And that's one of the big strengths of Mono Green Devotion, is it puts your opponent to that test the most. And you see here from Isaac, has a hand with, some removal, but it's going to need, okay, Leyline.
A Leyline, no elf, but a Leyline. Very powerful. We're going to see a Fairy Miscreant
There is
Isaac.
a Nykthos in hand, Niall.
That is tough, as we're going to see the invasion come down.
So this is 5. Oh, we have the Cavalier. And this is what we were talking about with the Leyline in game number 2. Would Jacob keep it as sort of a, Llanowar elf that dodges the interaction? And it looks like we did.
Yeah, man, Jacob about to have quite the turn here. Isaac going to draw with this Mockingbird Fairy Miscreant. Play Mutavault's the land for turn, trying to get damage on the board as fast as possible. But Jacob just already so much faster. I mean, our Green Devotion is 5 at the moment.
Yeah. And
there's Kiora. Oh, so we're going to get to untap and do it again for 6 now.
Yep, and we know we have the Cavalier from a second ago. We could even storm the festivals here. And yeah, we are going to storm.
This is disgusting.
Yeah, and another Leyline was hit, so that's another 4 mana. And then the Trailblazer. This is tough. I mean, now with the Nykthos, that's just so much mana on the next turn. And we do get to draw from the Trailblazer entering thanks to Kiora. And this is sort of what we talked about, the explosive draws that Green can have. It can just do stuff that the other opponent can never hope to keep up with when it comes to mana usage. I mean, Isaac could use every mana for the next 4 turns and not do as much as Jacob is going to do in the next turn.
Yeah, and I mean, honestly, Isaac got kind of lucky in that turn, even though it doesn't feel like it. Like, that Storm the Festival could have been way, way worse.
Oh,
but yeah, it's going to come back next turn. Jacob's got infinity mana, basically, till the end of time. And, it's really, really making this pile of tiny little 1/1s just look so insufficient.
Yep. as we see the Nykthos activated for 10, down to 9 for the Llanowar Elf, and we're probably going to see stuff like Cavalier and other things get developed, and then Storm. Typically, if you're going off on the turn, Storm is often the last thing you want to do because you want to have the perfect information before you sort of play your, kind of soft tutor. We did it last turn to really play around counter magic, I think was the idea that Jacob had there. Basically, Isaac could be having negate or something like that. We wanted to do it, but we'll have to see what he's able to pull off because we've upped our devotion by 4 since the starting point, which means we're able to keep going even harder.
Yeah. And we are untapping Nykthos.
Yeah,
I think just making sure we agree on.
I think Isaac thought the Kiora came in at 6 loyalty, so I think he thought it was supposed to be 1 loyal, but it comes in at 7. It just players often think of it as 6 because you just almost immediately activate every time. So that's something that's definitely happened to me before. And I believe we have 16 mana in the pool right now.
That's crazy because we play an Old Growth Troll. Draw for Kiora. It's like a invasion was the pickup.
Yeah, and notably, Jacob has not played land for turn yet. That land was put into play off the Cavalier, and Jacob has another Nykthos. This could very easily be game of Ulvenwald Oddity is found. Oh. And that's
the invasion. Off the invasion. You can just see it on Isaac's face. He knows.
Yeah, I mean, this is why so many players will play the green deck. It just does things like this. And even when you hit matchups where they have some cards that are good, you can just overwhelm them so much.
Yeah. And we're going to get a Trailblazer here. Go ahead and play it. Make a mana, draw off Kiora. Yeah, Isaac is making a doodle. Love that.
It looks to be a penguin.
It does look to be a penguin. And we're going to play a new Kiora, which is a lot like playing a new Nykthos. Yeah, we've got our invasions. Untap Nykthos, make, I don't know, like 20 mana. 2, 4, 8, 12. I think actually literally 20.
Yeah.
And then we're going to Storm.
It looks like a Nykthos was found along with some other lands.
Yeah, we're going to get the Nykthos.
Keenhead Curator decided to come on in.
Yeah, I got the Curator.
No, maybe that's not Curator.
Actually, I think that's a Scrap Shooter.
Yeah, I was gonna say, we just drew cards. That makes me think it's a Scrap Shooter.
Yep.
So there's Old Growth Troll.
Yep, there's some more card draw.
Still
the name of the game is Find Ulvenwald Oddity as we storm again. And we still haven't even tapped our new Nykthos.
Yeah, and we just found a Cavalier. Honestly, I wonder, there's the Ulvenwald Oddity. Okay, I was going to say, you might want to not take Cavalier to play around Oddity. But yeah, there we go. Jacob showing us why this green deck is so impressive.
Yeah, I mean, that was incredible. Very cool to see Mono Green Devotion doing its thing. Congratulations, Jacob. Very well played. Very well played by both players. But congrats, Jacob, for making it 4-0 so far in the event. I think we do have a backup match just about ready to go. So excited to get down into that as soon as it is ready. But yeah, it looks like we are ready for it. We have Rodney Bedell here on the Dimir bounce deck, and then Jake Conan on Izzet Phoenix.
Yeah, and this bounce deck is sort of similar-ish to the Dimir one you've seen in Standard, where it is a controlling deck. We just have Yorion as this way to bounce everything again. You actually see some players do Esper in the format for cards like the Wandering Emperor and Pixie, and the Pixie picking up the Yorion is my favorite thing to do in Pioneer right now. Just go forever and ever. But Rodney deciding to have better mana. We've seen this deck pop up recently on Magic Online. I think it actually got 2nd or 3rd in a challenge yesterday. So I would not be surprised if this is actually Rodney's first time playing the deck, or at least this iteration of it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we've talked a lot about these Pioneer mainstays that we've been seeing all day, but Dimir Bounce definitely one of the newer decks to the format as we are thought seizing. Spoiled for choice. Treasure Cruise, talent, profs. Looks like we are going for the talent. But wow, what a crazy hand to be looking at.
Yeah, I like this take here from Rodney. There's a lot of good things going on, but the talent is the one that makes them all kind of operate at their best. So while maybe profs or crews are cards that are more threatening, the talent is going to really amplify that. So trying to sort of split the middle there makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and it looks like going to play this profs, draw a card, pass back over to Rodney, going to play Mutavault for turn.
And I think Rodney's playing. Oh, picked up Yoran. Excuse me. I say Rodney drew Narset for turn, but did not want to develop it this turn.
Yeah. And just going to be land go for Jake here.
That's because that's a swamp that's blue. It all makes sense now. I could not figure out why Rodney would not play Narset into it because it'd be an illegal play.
Yeah, that would have been an interesting one for sure. And we are going to do a little free the Fae here. And then we're going to cast a Consider. And then we're going to Jake's turn proper.
Rodney's deck plays 35 lands, a good number for sort of these Yorion controlling decks, but sometimes you have like the quote unquote right numbers, but just still doesn't work out for you.
Yeah, Rodney missing a 4th land drop here. So we're going to go ahead and start casting spells, getting through our deck. Will this be the turn that a Phoenix hits the yard? Well, there's Treasure Cruise.
Yeah. And
that's going to be 3 cards for Jake. Do we have anything? Are we past? Do we not have?
Yeah, it looks like we didn't have anything we could play or any way to get a Phoenix in the graveyard. Jake's just going to have to settle for drawing 3 extra cards that turn.
Yeah, it looks like Jake has exactly 7 in hand, maybe? No, actually, I think it might be 8. Hard to tell.
It is. And Rodney picked up the land for Narset. We're going to have to lose a life for it. But now we have Narset Parter Veils. And the real question is, do we want to minus or not? And I like this from Rodney. Just holding the Narset at 5, making it so that the Arclight Phoenix cannot easily kill it. And you get to play the game around this. And with this discounting big enough, you can actually maybe make this game about Narset for a while.
Yeah, as we are going to play the Phoenix, swing in, take Narset down to 2. Back over to Rodney.
Rodney has Momentum Breaker in hand and Grim Bobble, a bunch of just standard all-star cards when it comes to killing stuff, which all answer Phoenix. And because of the Narset, actually do a really good job of answering the Phoenix.
Yeah, we're going to start with the Thoughtseize here. Temporal Trespass. We see a bunch of cards. Looks like Treasure Cruise is the pick for Rodney.
I like that pick a lot from Rodney, despite sort of being a little awkward because Temporal Trespass looks tempting. The rest of the hand doesn't really work. And the only real way you're going to lose from this spot is if your Narset dies quickly. So just leave your opponent with the one card that sort of maybe kills Narset, but not really unless a lot more goes right. And just buy time. Your Yorion will do a lot here. And Artist Talent, really strong card, but not in the face of Narset.
Yeah, absolutely. Rodney, doing a very good job of being the control deck here. I mean, we still have the Yorion in hand as well. Really, I mean, Narset just shutting down so much of what Jake is trying to do. And here is the Hopeless Nightmare. Gonna go ahead and get some more cards out of Jake's hand.
I love this play from Rodney. Fear of Isolation to pick up the Shipwreck March and replay it so that I have this town ain't big enough to protect my Narset.
Yeah, very, very nice. Looks like Narsa going to be bounced to Rodney's hand with Otawara. This town ain't big enough. Doesn't really help if what they're trying to do is bounce it anyway.
Yeah. We could see Rodney respond and bounce. It looks like he's already picked up the bubble. I think what we're thinking about now is, do we want to maybe pick up our Hopeless Nightmare and bounce this Artist Talent in order to not let it go too crazy? It looks like Rodney actually wants to pick up both of his own things. And I like this play a lot. There's 3 kill spells in hand from Jake. Don't let Jake have an opportunity to maybe convert those into a Phoenix. Yeah, force them to be redraws.
Yeah, as we're seeing them get discarded to the Artist Talent. Yeah, and there they go, getting discarded. And we've drawn 4 cards on the profs.
Yeah, and we have the Picklock Prankster in exile in order to play. But it looks like we're actually going to take
Temporal Trespass. And looks like Rodney happy to scoop them up at that. So congratulations, Jake, taking down the first game of our backup feature match. Looks like Rodney did take down game 2, is what we're hearing. So we're going to go to their game 3 and see how that's going.
Yeah, as we have not much time left in the round, but we want to get you the full feature match. So we're going to skip ahead a little bit with the power of time-shifted magic.
Yeah, so we're going to get into game 3. So Jake will be on the play as Rodney won game 2.
And it looks like Jake is maybe taking a mulligan right now.
Yeah, it looks like Rodney keeping 7, perhaps. I mean, that was a very, very well-timed Otawara. So very well done, Jake, there. Looks like we are going to keep the 6. Play Canal, pass. Rodney just going to play tap land, pass. Taking a look here. Going to put that on bottom, draw. Go back to Jake's turn. And just land go. And Rodney happy to do the same. This is going to be a free the Fae from Jake. Looking at a Phoenix, a Treasure Cruise, a Mystical Dispute, and a land, taking the Treasure Cruise.
Yeah, wants to have more ways to move through the deck, try and take an aggressive stance. Mystical Dispute can be really tempting against cards like Narset, which are pretty big players in the matchup, but looks like Jake's hoping to maybe get around that as it comes to pick up Prankster.
Gonna play the Prankster, and Rodney going to go ahead and get a Omen of the Sea down.
I think Rodney, because of time, maybe shuffled Yorion into the deck, and I think it's in hand. Because I was like, where's the companion? I was about to say it's probably off screen, and then I see there's a white card in hand, and Rodney only has 1 whitish card in the deck.
That is very funny. So you're going to see Rodney just land go. Looks like we're going to draw the top card there at the end. And then back over to Jake.
Yeah, these Esper Yorion decks are actually really good at just kind of grinding through what the opponent is doing. And in this matchup, it's a lot about setting up the right pieces and then sort of just taking over from there. Rodney really needs something like a fatal push. If we had a fatal push last game instead of, this town, the game would have been pretty different and maybe could have actually, ran Jake out of resources. And I imagine that's probably what happened here in game number 2 that we didn't get to really see, is Rodney just sort of locked Jake out and then Jake concede or get, sleeper hold to death while Yorion slowly hit them.
Yeah, and Rodney sacrificing the Omen to Scry 2. Happy to play the slower paced game, but also does know that he needs to be taking care of what Jake has going on in hand at the graveyard, all of that. So interested to see if he is able to interact on any of those. Was that a Was that a extinction event in his hand?
No, it wasn't Extinction Event, but it's a very similar one. I think that might have been our sideboard, The End, which exiles all creatures of the same name. So that's a great way
Mm.
to catch all of these phoenixes. And if you're at a low life total, it costs 2 less as well. It has the Fateful Hour mechanic without having the Fateful Hour mechanic.
Wow. Yeah, and it looks like Treasure Cruise for Jake. We've got a Phoenix in the yard. And we're going to be considering this is our second instant sorcery.
Negate picked up here for Jake.
Is he going to go for a third one, get that Phoenix out? Or is he respecting Rodney's mana?
Yeah, it's a tough spot. And, we don't know. Maybe the end played a big role in game number 2, right? We had to sort of skip that match for the sake of time. And if that did happen, Jake might be thinking, well, I lost, last game to the end. I don't really want to lose this one to it as well. I can wait a turn or two and then get to it. I've got enough interaction.
Yeah, we're just going to get in for a little damage. Got all that interaction in hand. Looks like Rodney maybe wanting to lean on a duress here. If he wants to play anything, looks like we are going to start off with this duress. Will Jake let it resolve?
Yeah, this is an interesting one. You have 2 different counter spells in hand. So in theory, if you're worried about a card like Narset, you do have it covered as long as Rodney doesn't go, another land plus another discard spell. But if you negate and they have that same line of thinking, then it's not like your Mystical Dispute's going to make it through anyway. So
sure. And it looks like Rodney has a Mystical Dispute of his own.
Yeah, and that would be a great way to maybe fight a fight here. If Jake's willing to negate, he might be willing to dispute. Yeah, and you see Rodney snaps it off. He's so excited to exchange resources here. As this is basically what Rodney wants to do anyways.
Yep, and Jake is fine letting this one resolve. So we do see the Mystical Dispute.
And
to command the Spell Pierce. We see the axe. It looked like for a second there, Jake considered disputing the dispute or, something like that, but thought better of it. And I think that was a good call because now there is no way for Rodney to safely deploy something like a Narset where he would have been able to had Jake gone for it.
Yeah, and I love this play here from Rodney. Just get this Fear of Isolation on the board. Don't let the Picklock Prankster be a free little hit you thing. Force Jake to do something and play into the end, while also maybe representing more interaction.
Yeah. I mean, once again, picking up the land to effectively make it a 1-mana creature. Very nice. As Jake is doing what Phoenix does, going through the deck like crazy.
Jake bought an artist talent pretty quickly there. Makes me think that, it looks like maybe another sideboard card was drawn. Jake trying to play the slow and steady game with Phoenix here.
Yeah, really showing a lot of respect to Rodney and his deck right now. As we're going to see Proph's Eidetic Memory. That's going to resolve. We've drawn, I think, 3 extra cards so far.
I think you were right on the first one because we sleight of handed once.
Oh, so, sure. Okay.
Yeah.
So with Prophs, yeah.
Yeah. Prophs are real stickler. And it looks like we're going to Lightning Axe down this Fear of Isolation, which I believe gets us our Arclight Phoenix back. Yeah, now, Phoenix can't be targeted by the Prophs, but...
Right. Yeah, so we're going to put the counter there. Maybe it was 2 sleight of hands.
Yeah, maybe.
I think Rodney does also have an Extinction Event in hand.
Yeah, he might have both. That might be, and I mean, Extinction Event on even here would be kind of nice. The problem is Rodney knows there's a Spell Pierce in hand from Jake.
Yeah, we really need land plus a Spell Pierce of our own or a Mystical Dispute.
Rodney picked up Cling to Dust. Looks like maybe firing that off just on a random card to get a redraw.
And there's a Duress.
Duress is a nice one, but
yeah, gonna go ahead and fire it off immediately. Here we go. We've got free Picklock Prankster, Spell Pierce, Mystical Dispute. So there goes Spell Pierce. That's a good call. Mystical Dispute, harder to cast against Extinction Event if that's what Rodney's trying to do next turn.
Yeah.
It's like passing from there.
Yeah, and that should be a loud sign to Jake that Rodney is trying to do something non-creaturey, non-blue, right? Mystical Dispute's just strictly better if it was something like Narset. So the jig's up on that being what we're fighting over.
Yeah, there's another Phoenix and a Treasure Cruise, which is devastating with this props on the field.
Yeah, Rodney would love to have an Orcish Bowmaster right now.
Yeah, I bet he would. So I think that die is tracking how many extra cards we've drawn this turn. There's Consider. This is an absurd amount of damage.
Yeah, I mean,
we are successfully off of Mystical Dispute countering Extinction Event, but we are, I think, one draw away from this just being lethal. So that's lethal unless Rodney has a way to, deal with one of these creatures.
And I don't think Rodney does. Maybe there's a Fatal Push hanging out, but yeah, and you're seeing Rodney just pick it up.
Yeah, that is going to be game. Congratulations to Jake for taking it down, making it to 4-0 going into round 5. Very well played by both players. Now, we're going to take a quick break as we get ready for our 5th round, but don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.